Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. That theme music means it's time for our weekly conversation with Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. We'll get to Gotion, but I want to start with this really interesting study by the Commonwealth Foundation about the government unions. The NEA, AFT, SEIU, and AFSCME. The axis of evil certainly at the state level, and to a lesser extent the federal level. This is who runs Illinois. AFSCME, the teachers' unions, and SEIU, and everything else and everybody else, spare parts in service of these unions. Right? We talked about it last week. Like, for example, your home, which you don't own. It's collateral for the unions' defined benefit pensions. The Commonwealth Foundation looked at political spending by the unions. In the 2021-2022 election cycle, so the midterms, they spent a combined $708 million on politics. Wow. Since 2012, union spending on federal elections has nearly tripled. Democrats and their associated causes receive 96% of the cash. And so here again, as I've said about Illinois for going on decades, how does the Republican Party not draw a bright line and say, we will not take, none of our members will take, none of our elected officials are going to take money from SEIU, the teachers, and AFSCME, because these are anathema to good governance and fiscal sanity. They're cultural Marxists on top of it, for God's sakes. 96%. Oh, and at the state level, those unions, the teachers, SEIU, AFSCME, can't say it enough. So the IEA, IFT, AFSCME, and SEIU in Illinois. And at the state level, the four largest government unions, well, who's number one in the country during in the midterm cycle in terms of spending at the state level? Number one. Illinois is the fifth most populous state, but number one with a bullet when it comes to public sector union spending, these government unions. $28 million in Illinois compared to $25 million in California, which, of course, is 3 times the size.
Right. I was going to say it's a lot bigger than Illinois.
$28 million. And then these are the same people that, with the help of their media functionaries who run around decrying the billionaire set who, supports the super PACs that I've run in Illinois. Oh, funded by the billionaires and this and that. Oh, get the money out of politics. Meanwhile, $28 million in the midterms last year. The rank hypocrisy of it all. Also, those same 4 unions, Commonwealth Foundation study, accounted for 83% of BLM Brandon's campaign funds, teachers' unions the most. 83%.
I remember some teachers fought back, like, we don't want our union dues going to him because they didn't take a collective vote. They just did it.
And Illinois House Speaker, when did you stop beating your girlfriend? Chris Welch?
It was a Formica countertop. Come on.
Well, when did you stop? Yeah, Chris Welch. $1.25 million in the midterms. More than any other state legislator in the country. So tell me again about these four unions in particular, not the unions, these four unions in particular being a force for good and good governance. Illinois is, of course, the prime case study, the worst example. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Ted Dabrowski. Now, Ted, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. None of this comes as a surprise to you, but it's always good to have the numbers.
No, it's great. It's great to have the numbers. And the Commonwealth Foundation has done a pretty good job of this over the past year. So I'm glad they put this out. And what's fascinating is the parts you mentioned, which is of course all the money and the influence. And I think what most ordinary people forget, not the ones on this show, but the ordinary people who keep voting for the union supported politicians, largely Democrats, but a lot of Republicans, as you mentioned, especially those that take money from the education unions.
Yeah, like the leadership, like the quote unquote leadership of the Republican Party.
Well,
the House Republican super minority leader in the House, super minority leader in the Senate, and they wonder why they're in the super minority. No, they don't. But they're bending over for these jackals in the government unions, just like the Democrats do.
Yeah, and then it's with that power that the unions, with the politicians, of course, passing the laws, have created two classes of people in Illinois. Right, the union class, the government worker class. Now, I'm speaking about government unions, not private sector unions. They created this government union class that's protected by the Pension Protection Clause, that's now protected by the Workers' Rights Amendment, that's protected with long-term contracts, guaranteed raises, guaranteed salaries, all these benefits they get. And the other class, which is the one that has to pay for all that, they don't get any of those benefits. And so the ordinary Illinoisan has gladly or seemingly or whatever, accidentally, whatever you want to call it, created and voted for and perpetuates this two-class system that they keep having to pay for. They haven't connected the dots why they're paying so much in taxes and why they have no power and why the unions have all the power.
And now in Wisconsin, Governor Walker's budget repair bill, the so-called Act 10, that according to the MacIver Institute, saved Wisconsin taxpayers about $17 billion since it was passed and signed by Walker in 2011. Preventing Wisconsin from becoming Illinois. Well, now they've filed a lawsuit. Now that the left has controlled the Wisconsin Supreme Court, they filed a lawsuit seeking to overturn Act 10 and make Wisconsin more like Illinois, because that's what they do. They're like termites going through wood.
Yeah, and what was fascinating about Act 10, when it passed, whatever it was over 10 years ago, was how it really helped Wisconsin get off of a negative path and become a good state again from a budget perspective. They started having more growth. Is really beneficial, and they broke a lot of the problems that we have here in Illinois with the unions. And here they go. They might lose the good thing they've had for a while.
I want to talk about Gotion. You heard it on our newscast at the bottom of the hour that last night the village board in Manteno approved the zoning change to facilitate the location of that Chinese communist-backed EV battery plant in Manteno. We talked about this a bit last week. There was a pretty good turnout of the no Gotion residents, but the village board decided to stick with the Chi-Coms instead. I understand that some of those opponents who are Manteno residents are raising money to challenge the vote in court. But what's your perspective on the prospects of stopping Gotion?
Well, they've hired lawyers, the same lawyers that helped out of Minnesota, who helped stop one of those
Michigan
Chinese projects. No, this is they worked in Michigan too, but also a project in I forget if it was South Dakota or somewhere. So similar thing where they kept the Chinese out. The question is going to be, they've got the zoning now passed. That was passed 5 last night, and so the barriers are being removed. And Pritzker's got everybody pretty much lined up. So there's still attempts at doing some kind of lawsuits on environmental, but we'll have to see what kind of power this group has and whether they think they can find a path to blocking it. But you've seen all the major players come up and support it. So I think it's going to be tough. It's been a good fight, but I think we don't have the recall. We don't have the recall power they had in Big Rapids in Michigan. So. We have to wait around for the next election cycle to try to kick people out.
By the way, there is a website set up by those residents of Manteno challenging that vote. NoGotion-Illinois.com. NoGotion-Illinois.com if you want to help that fight.
And just along on this line, what's really, I think, damning about all this is, I just looked up a report we wrote a year and a half ago about Pritzker pushing his EV initiative back when he was passing this back in November 2021, the Reimagining Electric Vehicles in Illinois Act, and that whole thing was passed around trying to base it around Rivian, and at the time Rivian stock price was at $172. Today it's at $17. And the problem with this whole thing is that Pritzker and of course Biden and others are pushing this EV agenda, which we're seeing start to crumble. And it's this big industrial policy that they think is the right one for Illinois and for America. But you're starting to watch a lot of this whole EV movement slow down, maybe crumble, because the news on EVs are horrible. They're more expensive to take care of. They break down more often. They're not. It's $50,000 of subsidies per every EV made in America right now. So it's an unsustainable path. We'll have to see where it goes. But they've given $500 million to Gotion for this EV batteries from Illinois alone, and that's $200,000 a job.
Well, I got to tell you, even NBC Nightly News did a story about no one's buying EV vehicles. In fact, they even interviewed a car dealer who said they're returning them because if their battery breaks down, it's $40,000 to buy a new one. And no one has that kind of cash.
Right. Especially if you're poor, right? If you with an old combustible car, you can you can fix it easily. You can change the engine out for $1,000, some cheap engine, but you can't do that with these cars. So it's going to be. I read a great piece by somebody just saying that this is destructive for the poor people because they can't afford these cars. They can't afford them to begin with, and they can't afford to repair them.
Now, I wanted to ask you about Governor Pritzker because he's at odds right now with Mayor Johnson. So they had this 800-page report released Friday about the mercury and other toxins that were found at the site at 38th and Broadway or 38th in California. And now Governor Pritzker, he's saying, well, reporters got that report before the governor's office did, so there's a pause in construction. Is he possibly doing this because if we have these big, large white tents, it might look bad when he's trying to run for president someday?
He's still committed $65 million to it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I think the big mess is, I think it's more that Brandon Johnson is proving he doesn't know how to manage a city. And I think that was probably known before he got in, as we all wrote about. But he's proving continuously that he's not capable. And that hurts Pritzker because Pritzker needs as bad as Chicago may be run, he needs it to be somewhat, quote, normal. And Johnson doesn't know how to do that. And so, Pritzker's had to step in. They got the DNC in Chicago in less than a year. So things need to be perfect. And he doesn't want anybody screwing up his presidential ambitions in case they come to fruition. So Johnson is not a good partner right now for Pritzker in the sense of management of things, certainly on crime. Now on the migrant crisis, he hasn't managed it well, and this has allowed Pritzker to come in and say, "Hey, I'm the big guy. I got the money now. Let me take over." Bad for Johnson, and maybe good for Pritzker if he manages it well.
Well, do you know how much Governor Pritzker has paid out of his own pocket to have the DNC here in Chicago?
I have no idea about that. Yeah.
Look, the important news and the good news is that they're both underwritten politically and Brandon Johnson financially by those government unions. So they'll find a way to get along. And isn't that just what we want? Isn't that just what we want so that Illinois can stay on this wonderful track that it's on? Ted Dabrowski, President Wirepoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
And this is Brian Duncan, co-founder of Signature Bank. We wish you the very best this holiday season from Signature Bank, Chicago's business bank.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Let Signature Bank turn your business vision into reality this holiday season. Visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. They're a bank with roots right here in Chicago, and their decisions are made locally too. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Mick O'Rourke, President and CEO of Signature Bank. We'd like to wish you happy holidays from our Signature Bank family to your family.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Let Signature Bank turn your business vision into reality this holiday season. Visit